Coast to coast, border to border, and around the world, it's time for The Bill Alexander Show. The Bill Alexander Show is a guest-driven program where the topics are diverse and entertaining. Laugh and learn while you listen to one of the best hours of online radio. Now, here's your host, Bill Alexander.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Bill Alexander Show with yours truly, William Eric Alexander. All my friends call me Bill, and welcome to the program tonight. Well, this one is appropriate because we're recording this on Valentine's Day, 2023, and it is a documentary that was filmed by, or I should say put together by, David Millbern, and it's called 100 Years of Men in Love. And it's very interesting. I've had the opportunity to see portions of it, and it's one of those things where you start looking at these photos going, wait a minute, I never thought that. And I can go back through family photos myself and say, hey, this isn't, we just thought it was normal. We didn't think anything of it. We didn't realize there was something else more there because they were people that we loved and people we cared for. So, David, how are you doing this evening?
Good, Bill. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And it is Valentine's Day, so I'm wearing red, and we're going to talk about love. Love matters, Bill. You know that.
Yes. So I was going through the bio and everything, David, and before we get started about the actual documentary, can you explain to my audience who you are?
Well, I'm a journeyman actor. I've been an actor all my life. I started doing commercials when I was a kid, did a lot of campaigns for McDonald's, the Glasses to Go campaign, the Sunday Smile campaign. I was their Sunday Smile. And I had very supportive parents that said, you know what? I don't want you to end up 40 years old, wondering what if you've given it everything you got. So I gave it all I got. I became the youngest member of the Screen Actors Guild, or the Actors Studio in New York. Lee Strasberg studied there. Went to Northwestern. Did my first movie for Roger Corman, Slumber Party Massacre. Still signing autographs at conventions for a film that I did when I was 15.
Okay.
But then I went on to GH, General Hospital, played John Stamos' best friend on there. Lance Hurt was my character. Started doing other things, independent films. I played everyone's good husband or bad husband, depending on the script at Lifetime. Was in the Oscar-winning film Gods and Monsters, played Sir Ian McKellen's doctor in that. And I've just really been a journeyman actor. And at some point you say, you know what else can I do? So I moved into still acting, but I'm I moved into producing, directing, and writing.
So this documentary that you put together, the photos that you found, where did they come from to make this?
Well, they came from all over the place: antique stores, rummage sales, old shoe boxes, found in wallets. And I have to credit Hugh, Nini, and Neal Treadwell, who put together the collection. And it solved an age-old question for me, because I had my own photo that I found in boxes of my parents' stuff when I was a little boy. This is an old tintype, and the tintype is of two handsome gentlemen sitting next to each other, shoulders touching, their legs crossed towards each other. They're holding a placard that says Bourbon Fair 1908. This is a tintype. And my dad was born in Bourbon, Indiana in 1926. So at that time, I said, Mom, Dad, what's this picture? Who are these guys? You know, they're handsome. Who are they? No, David, this is your great uncle and his friend. Well, this tintype always held such fascination for me, such wonderment. So when I ran across Hugh and Neal's collection of 3,700 pictures, just like this, bingo, this is my ancestry. These are two gentlemen that were in a relationship. Their love mattered, and their love matters today. I called Hugh and Neal up, and and I'd already won one of my Emmys at that point. And I said, you know what? I think your collection would make an amazing TV special documentary. I said, can we work together? I said, absolutely. They gave me all 3,700 pictures. My editor, Billy Clift, and I culled those down to 350 that are in the special. And that's what we got.
So when you did the special, other than having the pictures of the individuals, did you know anything about them other than what may have been written on the back of them?
Well, you're very correct, Bill. We have signs, the actual writings of people on the back of the photos. And I'll give you an example. During the film, I said, well, here's another extension of the film. Let's read the back.
Okay.
Written on those photos. So I'm an actor. I did the narration, and it gives you yet another key into this immersive art form. I mean, we go from 1859 to 1959, 100 years, and what's written on the back. To give you an example, there's one photo with two men being in a cart being carried by a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Arm around the other one. And on the back of that photo is written, here's a picture of your Uncle Bill and his friend Bob.
Right.
Bob rode horses. Bob rode horses in parades. The father says that they were both clear as ducks. We get this commentary from not, always from the people in the photos.
Right.
Other people who found them and wrote their own commentary.
What I find interesting is when I was going through the documentary looking, there were a lot of photos of people that are in the military, of gentlemen who would have these pictures taken, and they always look like they're having fun, they're relaxing, whatever it may be. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen these photos in people's scrap albums, but I never put the connotation to it of what we're talking about, and just thought they were perfectly innocent, which they probably were. But now with what you're telling me and showing me, it has a totally different filter on it. And it's interesting the way that things were perceived then and how we perceive things now.
It's interesting, though, that you would pick up on that. In the TV special, we expose one military couple that we actually is the only living connection we have in the entire special.
Okay.
Two soldiers that were members of the Rainbow Division. Go figure, Rainbow. Yeah. Back in World War II, and the two of them helped liberate Dachau. And after they did that, they went back up into the Alps. They took these beautiful romantic pictures of themselves by a lake and in the snow. They exchanged rings. Mm-hmm. And the ring today is worn by a nephew of one of the gentlemen. So that nephew told us that my uncle would go up into his closet, pull down an old shoebox, and show me these photos. Mm-hmm. During World War II. And that's, like I said, that nephew still wears that ring of one of those of his uncles. So there is a collection of military subjects in our TV special. And if you think about it, that was during a lot of that was during the 40s, and the photo booths were very popular. Right. So what happens in a photo booth? Well, you get to close that curtain. Yeah. No developer, there's no photographer, and those photos just spit out of that machine. Mm-hmm. And you can, those are just yours and your partner's forever. Right. As intimate as you want. That's why when we look at these photos, some were like pristine, and others were like folded up and stuffed into a wallet. So there's a whole array of photos in the special. And you can actually look at the special by thinking it's a history of photography. We start out with the tintypes.
Right.
and onward. There's even a section where everyone was under umbrellas. So in the late 1800s, we're like, why are there so many people under umbrellas? Well, if you think about an umbrella, the handle, your hands are touching, and then an umbrella creates a canopy to deter wandering eyes or what's going on with the umbrella. So we really think that the umbrella is kind of the rainbow flag of that time.
And again, that's interesting because we don't, and maybe it's later generations that we don't think that these things were going on before a certain time. They were, but they were, and I don't like to use the word hidden, but they were out of the spotlight and not as acceptable. So these guys unfortunately had to hide these relationships. And I mean, I'm sure there's a few people that knew, but they couldn't express themselves the way they should. And to me, a lot of ways that when they had professional photos done, that was opening themselves up to probably ridicule at the time that no one ever even thought of.
You're absolutely right, Bill. I mean, they faced imprisonment, they faced loss of livelihood. I mean, those of us who can openly love whomever we want now, rest on the shoulders of these gentlemen who took the risk to say, you know what, our love matters, and it matters then, and we're going to capture it. They captured it for posterity. They didn't know that 100 years from then, that their pictures would show up. We're told that if we have a torch and we're supposed to pass it on to ignite other young people to carry forward. Well, if you pass that torch on, you're in the dark. What we need to do is take these pictures, hold our torch, and enlighten people to say, you know what? Go love. Go love authentically. Go love whomever you want to love. And know that these folks showed us the way. I believe that the TV special or the film is really a call to action. It's a call to action to be bold. You know what? These gentlemen did it. So I'm going to go out and love who I want to love and take it. I know that since I've worked on this film, I'm very aware of when pictures are being taken.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
People like, well, I'm 100 years from now.
There's a set of photos in there with you're dealing with African Americans, which I never even thought about it until I saw the documentary, talking about how photography was out of their reach at the time. And you have two gentlemen sitting on a roof that you believe is New York City, sitting in this chair, one sitting on another one's lap. And I'm thinking about it going, not were they dealing with racism in the country. Now they have to hide the person they love, and they have to deal with this whole different set of problems that they may be developing. So in other words, what they're doing is they're hiding within their own society because they don't want to be found out.
And also the access to, let's face it, cameras in those times were expensive.
Right.
To even have a camera around was limited. Of those 3,700 pictures, and we pulled them down to 350, I included all 30 that we had. African American, Asian, Hispanic couples, because it meant that much to be inclusive of that. But you can't be inclusive if they're not there.
Right.
So it really is a sign of our times. And I feel very honored that we can at least have some photos that show that LGBTQ goes across all races and ethnic backgrounds.
There's another one that just popped into my head. There's two gentlemen sitting in a car, and which would look like any teenagers sitting in the back of a car, goofing around, whatever. And the way they're sitting in the vehicle, which of course it's a convertible, there's no top to it. And I'm thinking to myself going, I wouldn't notice anything about this photo except that the guy has his hand around the other guy's waist. And unless you look at the photo, you don't see that.
Yes, it's an examination. And cars, cars were huge. Well, cars are still huge
Right.
today, even more so back then. So we have a whole section in the special of cars. And when I love that um, um, you're so immersed in the photos, Bill, because that's what I feel audiences feel. I feel, the film has won 23 film festivals. I stand in the back of the audiences and I feel these audiences going, what is this? What's going on? And then they go kind of en masse. They kind of, oh,
Right.
this is an art installation. I'm going to examine each film and I'm going to immerse myself in the history and the details of each shot. That's why it's just not a montage. We just go and let the creative juices flow so the audience gets a sense of each picture and the time that it's coming from. We feel that we have the first selfie. There's one shot in the late 100s of two guys with an old camera and they have some contraption, but they're shooting in a mirror. So they've got
Okay.
their arms together and they're shooting this picture into a mirror. We call it into the mirror. And speed ahead, we feel it's the first selfie ever taken.
So when you looked at these photos, and I got so many questions now and so many ideas for you, that you looked at these, how many guys, other than, and I see the poster behind you of the two men kissing, were there a lot of those? Were there a few of those? Were there an equal amount? How did that all work out?
Progression in the TV special, we look at first of all, the love is in the eyes. So we start a section of looking at what's happening in the eyes as they look at each other. And I have a funny story about that. Like I said, these film festivals, I stand in the back, and this one woman came up to me. She said, "Oh my God, David, such a beautiful, beautiful film of love.
Mm-hmm.
I wish to God I had a man who ever looked to me in those eyes." It's like, well, first I was like, oh, darling, how
Yeah.
sad. But that's what we're looking at in the eyes. And then we go to body parts touching, maybe a hand, a thigh, a foot resting foot, putting the arms around each
Mm-hmm.
other. Move into actually, being in bed but clothed, in certain situations. And then we move into the ultimate, which is the kiss.
Right.
And several pictures of kissing, and that's where we take off. We end it there with the kiss.
You made a comment when you were talking about watching the people viewing this film, and I can actually see it being an art installation of putting it in a setting where all these photographs are there, having people in the room and open up the discussion, and then take them to see the movie and then to bring them back out again just to see what their impression was. Because, I mean, it runs for what, about an hour, and in some cases you miss a lot of stuff in an hour that you have to watch it over again, that it would be interesting to get the impression of people of what they saw, what they felt, and open up conversation.
Many people go back and watch the film over and over again. I was very honored that the Hollywood Museum here in Los Angeles made an installation of the film, Hollywood is Mine here. It's playing there for a year. And then just recently, the Palm Springs Art Museum reached out and said, we would like to hold a charity event using the film, because they realize it is a piece of art. It is an immersive piece of art where people go and they just go on the journey. It's not just a film, it's a piece of art that needs to be looked at and studied, like you said, because each photograph there is so much information to gain and glean from what's going on there. I'm very proud of this film, as you can imagine.
So it ends in 1959. And I know that if we would go 100 years, we'd be in 2023. But if you looking at the 60s and the 70s, because that was when a lot of it was coming out into the public eye. And there, I think in that time, there was probably a lot more discrimination against it because it was becoming more publicly noticed. And it would be interesting to see what those photographs would look like. Would they look the same as they did 20 years before, or would they look different?
Well, it's interesting, the contraception in the straight world kind of gave gay people the license, with the birth control coming out, and straight people and heterosexual could have free. You speak of the 60s and 70s. That made it okay to kind of experiment.
Right.
Then LGBTQ community came along and said, "Wow, okay, we don't have the risk of becoming pregnant. We see the heterosexual community going for it because of contraceptives."
Right.
Okay. So then the gay people came along in the 60s and 70s, and the pictures changed. It was out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
So I think not many people realize that whole coming out period of Stonewall and the Black Cat riots was really due to free love of heterosexuals, which is kind of fun. That's an interesting piece of history.
So when they were looking for the photos, did something just happen that they were noticing there was a lot of photos like this when they were going to these yard sales, flea markets, auctions, whatever they may be, and they started noticing a theme when going through these?
And as soon as they saw that theme in the eyes or in the body part, obviously the ultimate was a kiss, they would collect it. They would buy that photo and they would add it. They first started with one. They thought, Hugh and Neal said, "We'll never find another picture like this." And then they started kind of looking. And then they found another one and another one and 3,700. That's what we got.
Now,
I want to bring up one fact that I'm thrilled about. 74% of Americans now agree that same-sex marriage is right. That's with the Respective Marriage Act that was just
right.
When have Americans ever agreed on 4%
You're right.
of an issue? So if we think then of the 26% that we don't know about, well, the same poll says that 13% of those 26 don't really care
right
one way or the other. So that means that we're only dealing with 13% that are not okay with same-sex marriage rights. And you know what? I'm not a judge. I believe that we should not be judgmental. People have the right to have their own beliefs. And, but that's what we're dealing with, 13%.
Now, those photographs, were they all found in one portion of the country or were they found nationwide?
Nationwide and also throughout Europe. Neal traveled to Europe and got into the hunt, if you will. They collectors would come to them and give them photos, and they expanded their search worldwide. So it's pretty impressive, and I'm absolutely in awe of what they've done with their collection. And I'm so happy that we were able to put it in a film to get it out to the world, to get people to know that this love was here and this love is now, and the pictures that we take of ourselves now and for positive role images, this love will continue because it is. It's just love.
So when everybody agreed that this was going to be done and you had to get financing for it, how did you approach people about this? Because I mean, you don't know if you're dealing with that 13% when you're asking for things like this. You don't know who you're dealing with.
Well, this is the beauty of Here TV, HERE
Yeah.
the largest LGBT network, satellite system, cable system
Mm-hmm.
in our country. And Here TV, their whole company mandate is to provide positive role images
Oh, wow.
for
Okay.
young people. So I took it to them, and they said they wrote the check, and that's what's so beautiful is that if we do provide positive role images, we will cut the suicide rate of our young folks who are just being bullied. They're saying, "I can't take this anymore. Life isn't worth living." So if we provide them with images that we were here, we are here, and you have a future, there's no better thing that you can be doing to save your life. So I feel very pleased to be working with Blue TV. They are authentic. They try to go with authentic storytellers to tell authentic LGBT stories. That's
What you've been able to do, and with what you just to do that 100 years of these photographs and being able to narrow it down to 350, to me, has to be amazing, and had to be a feat that didn't just happen. I mean, it had to take a long period of time. And I'm sure you were looking at one photo, looking at another, going, okay, we're going to put this one in. No, we're going to put this one in. And the whole idea, when you decided which ones you put in, what was the criteria? And I understand some of it had to do with ethnic background and stuff like that, but overall, what was the criteria?
So it's interesting because, and this is funny, my editor again, Billy Clift, and I, we knew these photos so well. We started calling them couples. We had names.
Okay.
Oh, Bill and Tom, Fred and Mike. Yeah, we'll put him in there. This and that. So we wanted to create a journey. We wanted to escalate the intimacy from the look to the touch to the body parts to being clothed in bed to finally the kiss. So once I had mapped out the journey of the film, the journey of the art installation, if you will, it was pretty clear which photos intensified that experience.
Mm-hmm.
That it became experiential, and it showed different time periods because we are covering 100 years. So it was difficult, but it was such a labor of love because we're dealing with love. And you can't have any better process than that. I also juxtaposition famous gay authors and
Okay.
their thoughts about love and their famous quotes about love,
Mm-hmm.
and that in between the photos and the music and the narration. So it becomes a whole journey, which is fun.
So with these photos in, like you said, auctions, flea markets, yard sales, estate sales, whatever it may have been, um, are you prepared for someone to come up and say, hey, that was so and so in that photograph? And we wanted, and I mean, we heard stories, but we never had proof. I mean, because someone's going to see this that knows someone in there. You know that.
I would love that. I would love that, Bill. That would be so joyous to have someone come up and go, that was my great uncle. That
Yeah.
was how that would feel. I would love to know who these people are in my life.
Right.
Why was this in my family collection? Who are these people? And of course, everyone's dead. So it would have to be some surviving relative that would.
Well, that's why I was thinking the ones from from World War II, their kids, grandkids. That would be interesting.
The nephew has substantiated,
Because I'm just making the assumption, but I'm sure a lot of these guys did have wives back at home while this or whatever, and ended up getting married, coming back because that was the right thing to do. and trying to I don't want to say alleviate the urge, but what we think of whenever people do make that assumption. So I can imagine there being some family members with hey, that's
yeah. And I think, Bill, that's why the photos ended up in the shoebox on the
right,
top.
that the closet, yeah.
It's been put into a wall, you know. But then again, others were pristine and as if they were on a mantle. And if you look at the photos, the effort that went into some of these photos, the pristine suits and the cufflinks and the posing and getting the right look, there was a lot of effort and a lot of love that went into this. These gentlemen wanted to capture what they had. And I fantasize sometimes, and I think the audiences have told me this. What are they saying? You know, in this virtual world, if we look down, you know, these gentlemen finally seeing
right.
their picture, they thought would never see the light of day, and now they're in this TV special for people to see. My fantasy is they're going, see, we were right. We were right to be authentic. We were good for us for capturing what we captured, and look what we've allowed to expand. The freedom to openly love whoever we love. I believe that they would be looking down on us and smiling and saying, "Thank you." You know what? I have to return that gratitude and say, "Thank you for showing us the way. Thank you for providing possible images. Thank you for letting us know that we're not alone, that we can love." That would be my fantasy.
Some of the other things I noticed, you're talking about how these gentlemen were dressed to the nines in these outfits, and then I look at some of them and I go, if you look at them, and now you know that they are a couple, but in some cases they look like they're brothers because they're dressed alike, or they look like cousins because they're dressed alike, and maybe that was because they didn't want anybody to know, and this was their way of documenting that, especially the professional photos, because that's the one thing that still amazes me, that they were willing to go in there and subject themselves to that.
And you know, there's that one photo, and one of my favorite photos, they're like 18, 19-year-old kids, and it looks like it's in the late 1800s. And when you would go into a photography studio, there would be props there.
Right.
There would, that you could pick up and hold and this and that. Well, they chose to pick up a sign, just like the placard here saying Bourbon Fair. They held a sign that said, not married, but willing to be.
Okay.
Well, that would be a young woman and a young man saying, not
right.
married. But they have the guts to say, you know what, you and I are going to hold this because we're not married, but we're willing to be. Such commitment. There's a series of photographs of those two young gentlemen, 18, 19-year-old, where they're holding the umbrella too.
Yeah.
Holding not married but willing to be. The other one they're holding an umbrella. So
there is another one of them holding two gentlemen holding an umbrella. It's a black one. I think they're at the beach or something, and there's two women looking over the edges of it, like looking underneath it.
Yeah. Well, we have straight allies today, and obviously
right.
allies there. They were protecting these gentlemen by onlookers to make sure, okay, go ahead and take your picture.
Go ahead.
Your back.
Yeah.
And that kind of inclusiveness and acceptance is so exciting to see 100 years ago. So we can imagine how far we've come, that 74% of Americans are saying now, they have the right to have that guaranteed right.
But listening to you and these photos and everything else, because I'm going to put a different spin on it, that I'm thinking that it was acceptable then, except that the political leaders at that time did not want that because it was going to ruin their perfect society. Because if you had people that were allies, I'm sure there were more that were than not. And because who's taking the picture? Who's the one holding the camera? Who's the one doing all this? And I'm thinking, there's more to this. There's more to this than just the two people. Who's the one holding the camera? Who's the one making these arrangements? Now I have all these questions that it
where it's a delivery truck. You know, it looks like it's like 1930, and one guy's in the passenger seat, kind of looking back, and the two guys kissing each other.
Yeah.
You know, panel of the truck. You know, that it was okay. You know, it's okay, and I think you're right. I think our society somehow got into this is wrong, and we don't want this, and started putting clamps on this freedom that maybe saw back then.
It's
in these pictures.
Yeah, because again, I'm looking at these and I'm scrolling through the screener right now, and there's some that are popping up, and I'm looking at them going, you wouldn't be able to tell if you didn't know. And that's what I think is amazing. And again, there was someone there taking that photograph who thought it's okay, it's normal. They love just like everybody else does, and we're going to document that for them.
You know, Bill, I don't know if your audience, you can see the
yes,
the movie of the two men kissing. On the back of that one was written, "My darling, my darling." So one of them wrote "My darling."
And then again, we mentioned earlier about the ones in the military that were in active duty that were taking them. And of course, we've heard these stories about you don't do this, but there was another soldier taking that photograph. There was someone else doing it. And that's what I think is amazing about this, because for years, I think there probably was a very negative connotation, but I think that there was more acceptance than we know, is I guess the best way to put it.
You're absolutely right, and you remind me of a photo we have in the TV special of a group of sailors sitting on the ground. They're all eating ice cream, and there's one couple in the foreground that they're kind of on top of each other, you know, just hugging around. And on the back of that, it said, "Ice cream's good on a hot day. Does Mike still love Joe?"
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
well, again,
lovely stuff, literally, pieces of history.
And again, from what I've seen, and like I said, I've watched most of it, and of course I've scrolled through it. It's very, it was needed, is what it is. It's very needed for this time, because like you said, if it weren't for these guys, we would not be where we are today. And I think the people realize today need to understand what the suffering was then and how far they made it just within 140 years or 150 years.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And at least my solace is at least these people in these photos were not suffering alone. They had each other.
Right.
And the brave, the courage to take the picture because it mattered to them. So they had each other, and they had those allies, some of them, and today it's much better, but there's still more work to do.
So how can my audience see the documentary?
Well, it's playing everywhere. It's on Here TV.
Okay.
TV, and Here TV on every cable and satellite system in the United States. It's also on every streaming platform in the United States. You go to here.tv and find out what the best mechanism or what the best avenue is for you to watch this TV special.
So, David, what do you have happening next? What are you planning on doing next to top this?
Well, it's fun. I won an Emmy last year for my TV special, TV series called Girls' Voices Now, where we give cameras to underrepresented little girls 13 through 18, match them with female mentors who look like them,
Oh,
and go shoot your stories. Go tell us about your lives. They come back with these heartfelt stories, and I put them together in a series. And last year, Hugh TV with Girls' Voices Now brought home the first Emmy, beating out Sesame Street and Noggin. But it's a series that these, social bullying and little girls are having such difficulty. They see, Kim Kardashian and say,
yes.
well, I look like Kim Kardashian. Why don't I just cut myself or commit suicide? They're deeply troubled. So to be able to do a series like Girls' Voices Now, to provide a voice, these young women don't have anybody listening to them in the realm of their lives, let alone they shoot their stories. We do a premiere of their movies, and we give them certificates. And those smiles, they see those smiles and go, my voice does matter. I can make a difference, whether they go into show business as filmmakers or not.
Right.
So from that point on, that they have a voice and they can use their voice. It's so I love it. And then I'm writing a kickboxer film, which is called,
boy, that's a transition.
it's a film, and here again, it's a film where kickboxer is out there doing good work and beating the bad guys down, but we're casting the top guy in the kickboxing world who happens to be gay in his personal life.
Okay.
And so that's a positive role image for our young people. You know what? I can star in a film and I can be a kickboxer, and it doesn't matter who I go home to at
right.
night. It's revolutionary for our audiences, and that's what Hugh TV does.
That is really great. David, I really appreciate it. This was enjoyable. And when you get the one with the kickboxer done, let me know. I'd love to talk to you again about that. And I'm also going to look at the piece that you did with the young ladies last year, because again, that sounds very interesting too. And I have 3 kids. I have a 22-year-old who is an actor. I have an 18-year-old son, and I have a 15-year-old daughter. So I have experiences on all those ends. And it's kind of interesting to see that, and something I can share with her and share with both of my boys. So.
Well, Bill, you've been a pleasure too. And it's people like you that help move us forward too. So I just want to congratulate you and celebrate you for putting material like this out there, so people can understand that love is love.
Well, thank you very much, David. And you have a great rest of your Valentine's Day. Bye-bye. A big thank you goes out to David Millbern for joining me today. What a pleasure it was to talk about his new documentary, 100 Years of Men in Love, The Accidental Collection, as we talked about photographs that were found in some of the oddest locations, such as yard sales, flea markets, estate sales, and things like that. Again, finding these photographs of men expressing love for one another that dates back from the 1850s to the 1950s. So, David, thank you very much for joining me. And you, thank you very much for joining me too. And we'll talk to you next time here on The Bill Alexander Show.
Thank you for listening to The Bill Alexander Show. The Bill Alexander Show is a $1 Million Baby production. For more information, go to thebillalexandershow.com.